The Virginia Military Institute is a state-supported military college in Lexington, Virginia, the oldest such institution in the United States. Unlike any other senior military college in the United States, and in keeping with its founding principles, VMI enrolls only military cadets and awards baccalaureate degrees exclusively. VMI offers cadets strict military discipline combined with a Spartan, physically and academically demanding environment. The institute grants degrees in 14 disciplines in engineering, the sciences, and the liberal arts. While VMI has been called the West Point of the South, it differs from the federal service academies in several respects. For example, the living conditions at VMI are far more austere than at the service academies. Also, while all cadets must participate in the Reserve Officers Training Corps, they are afforded the flexibility of pursuing civilian endeavors or accepting a commission in any of the active or reserve components of any of the U.S. military branches upon graduation. Governance. The Board of Visitors is the supervisory board of the Virginia Military Institute. Although the governor is ex officio the commander-in-chief of the institute, and no one may be declared a graduate without his signature, he delegates to the board the responsibility for developing the institute's policy. The board appoints the superintendent and approves appointment of members of the faculty and staff on the recommendation of the superintendent. The board may make bylaws and regulations for their own government and the management of the affairs of the institute. And while the institute is exempt from the Administrative Process Act in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-4002, some of its regulations are codified at 8 VAC 100. The Executive Committee conducts the business of the board during recesses. The board has 17 members, including ex officio the Adjutant General of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Regular members are appointed by the governor for a 4-year term and may be reappointed once. Of the 16 appointed members, 12 must be alumni of the institute, 8 of whom must be residents of Virginia and 4 must be non-residents, and the remaining 4 members must be non-alumni Virginia residents. The Executive Committee consists of the board's president, 3 vice presidents, and 1 non-alumnus at large, and is appointed by the board at each annual meeting. Under the militia bill, officers of the institute were recognized as part of the military establishment of the state, and the governor had authority to issue commissions to them in accordance with institute regulations. Current law makes provision for officers of the Virginia militia to be subject to orders of the governor. The cadets are a military corps under the command of the superintendent and under the administration of the commandant of cadets, and constitute the guard of the institute. History. Early history. In the years after the War of 1812, the state of Virginia built and maintained several arsenals to store weapons intended for use by the state militia in the event of invasion or insurrection. In the 1830s, Lexington attorney John Thomas Lewis Preston belonged to a debate club known as the Franklin Society. In 1836 he made the case to the society that the arsenal in Lexington could be put to better use as a normal school for providing education on practical subjects, as well as military training to individuals who could be expected to serve as officers in the militia if needed. After debate and revision of the original proposal, the Franklin Society voted in favor of Preston's concept. After a public relations campaign that included Preston meeting in person with influential business, military and political figures, letters to editors of prominent news sources from Preston writing under a pen name, and many other open letters from prominent supporters, in 1836 the Virginia legislature passed a bill authorizing creation of a school at the Lexington Arsenal, and the governor signed the measure into law. The organizers of the planned school formed a board of visitors, which included Preston, and the board selected Claudius Crozet, a prominent officer and engineer formerly under the command of Napoleon Bonaparte, to serve as the president. Crozet was also the chief engineer of Virginia and someone whom Thomas Jefferson referred to as the smartest mathematician in the United States. The board delegated to Preston the task of deciding what to call the new school, and he created the name Virginia Military Institute. Preston was also tasked with hiring VMI's first superintendent. He was persuaded that West Point graduate and Army officer Francis Henry Smith, then on the faculty at Hampton-Sydney College, was the most suitable candidate. Preston successfully recruited Smith and convinced him to become the first superintendent and professor of tactics. In an endeavor unique to the United States, Preston, Crozet, and Smith founded VMI, intending to create a hybrid of the best characteristics of the United States Military Academy and French École Polytechnique educational models. After Smith agreed to accept the superintendent's position, Preston applied to join the faculty, and was hired as professor of languages. Classes began in 1839, and the first cadet to march a sentinel post was Private John Strange. With few exceptions, there have been sentinels posted at VMI every hour of every day of the school year. The class of 1842 graduated 16 cadets. Living conditions were poor until 1850, when the cornerstone of the new barracks was laid. In 1851, Thomas Stonewall Jackson became a member of the faculty and professor of natural and experimental philosophy. Under Jackson, then a major, and Major William Gilliam, VMI infantry and artillery units were present at the execution by hanging of John Brown at Charlestown, Virginia in 1859. Civil War period. VMI cadets and alumni played instrumental roles in the American Civil War. On 14 occasions, the Confederacy called cadets into active military engagements. VMIs authorized battle streamers for each one of these engagements, but the Institute chose only to carry one, the battle streamer for New Market. Many VMI cadets were ordered to Camp Lee at Richmond to train recruits under General Stonewall Jackson. VMI alumni were regarded among the best officers of the South, and several distinguished themselves in the Union forces as well. 15 graduates rose to the rank of general in the Confederate Army, and one rose to this rank in the Union Army. Just before his famous flank attack at the Battle of Chancellorsville, Jackson looked at his division and brigade commanders, noted the high number of VMI graduates, and said, "The Institute will be heard from today." 3 of Jackson's 4 division commanders at Chancellorsville, Generals James Lane, Robert Rhodes, and Raleigh Colston, were VMI graduates, as were more than 20 of his brigadiers and colonels. On the 15th of May 1864, the VMI Corps of Cadets fought as an independent unit at the Battle of New Market. At New Market, in a matter of minutes, VMI suffered 55 casualties with 10 cadets killed. The cadets were led into battle by the Commandant of Cadets and future VMI Superintendent Colonel Scott Shipp. Shipp was also wounded during the battle. 6 of the 10 fallen cadets are buried on VMI grounds behind the statue Virginia Mourning Her Dead by sculptor Moses Ezekiel, a VMI graduate who was also wounded in the Battle of New Market. General John C. Breckinridge, the commanding Southern general, held the cadets in reserve and did not use them until Union troops broke through the Confederate lines. Upon seeing the tide of battle turning in favor of the Union forces, Breckinridge stated, "Put the boys in." And may God forgive me for the order. The VMI cadets held the line and eventually pushed forward, capturing a Union artillery emplacement, securing victory for the Confederates. The Union troops were withdrawn and Confederate troops under General Breckinridge held the Shenandoah Valley. On the 12th of June 1864, Union forces under the command of General David Hunter shelled and burned the Institute as part of the Valley campaigns of 1864. The destruction was almost complete and VMI had to temporarily hold classes at the Arms House in Richmond, Virginia. In April 1865, Richmond was evacuated due to the impending fall of Petersburg and the VMI Corps of Cadets was disbanded. The Lexington campus reopened for classes on the 17th of October 1865. One of the reasons the Confederate General Jubal A. Early burned the town of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania was in retaliation for the shelling of VMI. Following the war, Matthew Fontaine Maury, the pioneering oceanographer known as the Pathfinder of the Seas, accepted a teaching position at VMI, holding the physics chair. Following the war, David Hunter Strother, who was Chief of Staff to General Hunter and had advised the destruction of the Institute, served as Adjutant General of the Virginia Militia and member of the VMI Board of Visitors. In that position he promoted and worked actively for the Reconstruction. World War II. VMI produced many of America's commanders in World War II. The most important of these was George C. Marshall, the top U.S. Army general during the war. Marshall was the Army's first five-star general and the only career military officer ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Winston Churchill dubbed Marshall the architect of victory and the greatest Roman of them all. The Deputy Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army during the war was also a VMI graduate, as were the 2nd U.S. Army Commander, 15th U.S. Army Commander, the Commander of Allied Air Forces of the Southwest Pacific and various Corps and Division Commanders in the Army and Marine Corps. China's General Sun Li-jen, known as the Rommel of the East, was also a graduate of VMI. During the war, VMI participated in the War Department's Army Specialized Training Program from 1943 to 1946. The program provided training in engineering and related subjects to enlisted men at colleges across the United States. Over 2,100 ASDP members studied at VMI during the war. Superintendents. Since 1839, VMI has had 14 superintendents. Francis H. Smith was the first and the longest-serving, filling the position for 50 years. Only 3 of the 14 superintendents were not graduates of VMI. Francis H. Smith, Scott Shipp, Edward W. Nichols, William H. Cook, John A. Lejeune, Charles E. Kilbourne, Richard J. Marshall, William H. Milton, Jr., George I. Schell, Richard L. Irby, Sam S. Walker, John W. Knapp, Josiah Bunting III, J. H. Binford PEAY III. Campus. The VMI campus covers 134 acres, 12 of which are designated as the Virginia Military Institute Historic District, listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The campus is referred to as the Post, a tradition that reflects the school's military focus and the uniformed service of its alumni. A training area of several hundred additional acres is located near the post. All cadets are housed on campus in a large 5-story building called the Barracks. The old barracks, which has been designated a National Historic Landmark, stands on the site of the old arsenal. This is the structure that received most of the damage when Union forces shelled and burned the Institute in June 1864. The new wing of the barracks was completed in 1949. The two wings surround two quadrangles connected by a sallyport. All rooms open onto porch-like stoops facing one of the quadrangles. A third barracks wing was completed, with cadets moving in officially spring semester 2009. 4 of the 5 arched entries into the barracks are named for George Washington, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, George C. Marshall 01 and Jonathan Daniels 61. Next to the barracks are offices and meeting areas for VMI clubs and organizations. The Cadet Visitors Center and Lounge, a snack bar, and a Follett Corporation-operated bookstore. VMI's Vision 2039 capital campaign raised more than $275 million from alumni and supporters in 3 years. The money is going to expand the barracks to house 1,500 cadets, renovate and modernize the academic buildings. VMI is spending another $200 million to build the VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics, to be used by cadets, Washington and Lee University students, and other U.S. and international students. The funding will also support study abroad programs, including joint ventures with Oxford and Cambridge universities in England and many other universities. Academic programs. VMI offers 14 major and 23 minor areas of study, grouped into engineering, liberal arts, humanities, and the sciences. The engineering department has concentrations in 3 areas: civil and environmental engineering, electrical and computer engineering, and mechanical engineering. Most classes are taught by full-time professors, 99% of whom hold terminal degrees. Within 4 months of graduation, an average of 97% of VMI graduates are either serving in the military, employed, or admitted to graduate or professional schools. As of 2010, VMI had graduated 11 Rhodes Scholars since 1921, most recently in 2009. Per capita, VMI has graduated more Rhodes Scholars than any other state-supported college or university. It has also graduated more than all the other senior military colleges combined. Rankings. Academic VMI is the only military college in the U.S. which is nationally ranked by U.S. News & World Report in the same category as the federal military academies. In 2015, VMI ranked 4th nationally, after the United States Military Academy, the United States Naval Academy and the United States Air Force Academy. In the U.S. News & World Report rankings, top public schools, national liberal arts colleges category. Forbes 2012 special report on America's best colleges ranked VMI in the top 25 public universities in the nation, well ahead of any other senior military college in the country. VMI was ranked 14th in the top 25 publics section, just behind the United States Military Academy, the United States Air Force Academy, and the United States Naval Academy, but ahead of the United States Coast Guard Academy and the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Overall, VMI ranked 115th out of the 650 colleges and universities evaluated. In 2009, U.S. News ranked VMI's civil engineering program 7th, its mechanical engineering program 14th, and its overall engineering program improved from 25th in the United States in 2008 to 21st out of 105 in the 2009 category of Best Undergraduate Engineering Programs. Quote, in the newly added 2009 category of High School Counselor Rankings of Liberal Arts Colleges, VMI is ranked 57th of the 266 best liberal arts colleges. Kiplinger's magazine, in its ranking of the best values in public colleges for 2006, made mention of the Virginia Military Institute as a great value, although the military nature of its program excluded it from consideration as a traditional four-year college in the rankings. Military service. VMI has graduated more Army generals than any other ROTC program in the United States. VMI alumni include an Army Chief of Staff, an Air Force Chief of Staff, and 2 Marine Corps commandants, making it the only college in the United States to have graduated service chiefs of 3 of the 4 primary armed services. As of 2007, VMI alumni included more than 270 general and flag officers, including the first 5-star general of the Army, George Marshall, 7 recipients of the highest U.S. military decoration, the Medal of Honor, and more than 80 recipients of the second highest awards, the Distinguished Service Cross and Navy Cross. VMI offers ROTC programs for 4 U.S. military branches and is one of the few schools that the Coast Guard allows its students to be able to direct commission from, another one being the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. While all cadets are required to take 4 years of ROTC, accepting a commission in the armed forces is optional. While over 50% of VMI graduates are commissioned each year, the VMI Board of Visitors has set a goal of having 70% of VMI cadets take a commission by 2015. In 2008, 52.8% of the graduating class accepted a commission, 63 joined the Army, 11 the Navy, 26 the Marine Corps, and 27 the Air Force. This table lists U.S. 4-star generals who graduated from VMI. It does not list alumni who did not graduate from the school, such as General George S. Patton and General Sam S. Walker, and the many VMI graduates who served or still serve as 4-star generals in foreign nations such as Thailand, China, and Taiwan.